It is with great pleasure that the gays deliver to you their first definitive agenda.
Are we supposed to be like, this is the intro, take one? I don't know.
Action. Hey everybody, welcome to Surface Level, a show that takes a look at society's expectations and rejects the ones we don't see it for, all from the perspective of three black queer best friends. I'm one of your hosts, Tony, and today, Damon and Jordan and I are addressing questions you submitted all season long. So strap on your wigs, because we're about to experience turbulence as we catch the tea and the shade of it all. This is Beyond the Surface Level. All right, you guys, so this is our final episode of the season. Really exciting. Woo! And to start it off, I think it'll be fun for us to do a few quick fire questions. So, let's start. Who has the quickest temper amongst the three of us? Damon.
Go ahead.
Damon.
Is that a question?
No, that seemed like a statement.
I think that's a statement. That's a given. All right. So, are all three of us into the same type of guys?
The only guy I'm into is Jesus.
Oh, Jesus only?
Yeah.
When's the last time you've been to church?
We can't go to the church, child. The COVID is out there.
A virtual church.
Okay.
The church is in my heart.
Anywho, I think we all have different tastes to a degree.
I think we have very different tastes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we agree a lot, but we also disagree a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next one. Which races have we all dated? For me, I mean, black, obviously, is one. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to dating, I can't think of any guys that I'm dated seriously outside of my.
It doesn't have to be serious, I don't think, right? What's the question?
Well, it's asking which races have we all dated?
Have you ever been on a date?
Jordan's the dater of all the races.
Not really. It's just black and Latin for me.
Please.
Black and Latin.
On Tinder dates?
Well, I went on one date with this guy from Europe, but that didn't go over well.
There was also the Indian guy.
Oh,
Indian.
right.
Indian.
I forgot. Yes.
So now we've pretty much covered all the races.
Oh, yeah. I guess you're right.
All right, last one. What's your favorite episode from this season?
Jordan?
Damn. That caught me off guard. Probably We Can't Be Friends.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Mm-hmm. Because I don't remember recording it. Because I think that I was overserved that day.
Overserved what?
Overserved wine.
Yes.
But then when I listened back to it, I thought it was really fun. And I thought that it was a good balance of comedy, levity, education, depth.
Yes.
That whole, it felt like it represented the podcast for me.
Right. For me, I think there were two in the runnings towards becoming my top podcast episode of the season. One, it started off with Stunt Queens, and I really enjoyed that episode. It was really fun. I think we were really in a groove, and it was dynamic. It had a lot of variety. But then I heard our We Can't Be Friends episode. It was really the essence of what I think we were striving to do with this podcast. And it got down to our friendship. And we had a lot of fun with that episode. We got to reading each other back and forth. That was the key. So I'm going to go with We Can't Be Friends. Damon, what about you?
I still stand strongly behind Stunt Queens. We Can't Be Friends is probably my second favorite.
Okay.
But I think Stunt Queens is the most balanced. I think that the topic is quite modern and specific to this moment. Mm-hmm. And I think that I think it's the best job of doing, we always wanted to do kind of evergreen topics, but also things that felt current. And I think it has the most balance. And it's funny as shit. And it's funny when it's meant to be funny, and it's also funny when we're talking about more serious topics. And I think it really does show our personalities. So that's still my favorite.
It was
very,
good.
We Can't Be Friends, very, very close second. Okay, so those were some of the questions that we got from friends and from people that have supported us over the season that were more kind of cut and dry, and that we wanted to kind of go through things that we've gotten from everyone from some of, not every episode, but a good amount of the episodes, and address some questions and topics that we've kind of been pressed to elaborate on a bit more. So I think we can get into it. So starting with episode 1, which seems like centuries ago, the politics of quarantine. Question 1 was, Jordan, following that moment, have you, did you ever end up going to one of the protests?
I know I said that I was going to consider it, but no. I didn't go to a protest. I respect and support everyone.
Confess. Shame. No, I'm kidding. I would never protest shame anyone. Go ahead. Continue.
I would. Y'all heard it.
I would. Yes, we all heard it. I respect and support everybody's decision to do it, but I didn't feel comfortable going to a protest. I've never done it, and there's a reason why. I don't think it's just for me. I decided to donate and to do like outreach to politicians to like enforce like change in the legal system, but protests maybe sometime in the future. But I missed this movement.
Okay. Different strokes with different folks.
This was a funny question. So Jordan and I got into a very heated exchange.
Yes.
An entanglement of sorts during the politics.
It was an entanglement.
An entanglement.
And a friend, a few people actually reached out and said, was our heated exchange planned?
Oh my goodness, somebody asked me that as well.
I appreciate the fact that people think that we are that great of actors.
Calculated.
But absolutely not. I think that for me, being the one who was quite fervent and passionate in that moment, like to put into context, we recorded that episode the Monday after the very first weekend of protest. So it was a place for a lot of us where like people were still raw with a lot of emotion, or still are, but like the most raw with emotion, taking in how the world and things were changing. And I think that was probably one of the most authentic exchanges on the whole thing. So it was very interesting that we got into a discussion where people were like, was that planned? I'm like, oh, girl.
Yeah, I think it was I got the same question, and people would ask me that. I think people were really surprised by you guys' exchange. And I think through people listening to each of the episodes, someone came to me and said, every episode, Damon is giving Jordan the business every chance he gets. And I said, that's not just on the podcast. That's in real life, too. Yeah.
Listen, sometimes you got to get girls that smoke.
Sometimes you gotta let people talk.
Catch it
and get it off your chest.
Okay, so last season, we talked about cancel culture and people we wanted to get rid of. So Speaking of people we wanted to get rid of, Kanye 2020, anyone?
Good Lord.
Oh my God.
Jordan, look fired up about it.
I'm not really fired up per se. I can't even remember if I said I couldn't cancel Kanye West or not. I think I said I couldn't.
I feel like you said that too.
But, things are a lot different now.
Okay.
Did you guys see that music video that he came out with?
No,
his
man.
new song?
No, man. He had a song.
It's extremely traumatizing. I watched it the night that it came out, and it's just like raw footage of just like all the surveillance videos of like the murders like happening, or like not the actual murders happening, but like leading up to it, like
This is Kanye's video?
His official music video.
See,
now of all fucking people that should be putting a video together like that, Kanye fucking West.
I can't.
I had no idea.
It was like traumatizing footage, just like somebody, it's like a black guy like hyperventilating because I guess he needed like oxygen, but he didn't have access to a ventilator. Like it's just like very intense imagery, and I couldn't even watch the whole thing. Like I was like actually very traumatized watching it. I don't even watch the actual videos when they come out because I can't watch stuff like that.
You know what?
So when he did it in the music video, I was like, okay. And then a week after, or like a couple weeks after, he was just like, I'm running for president. I'm just like, oh my God.
I think maybe he actually is bipolar because He's now decided that he wants to run for president, and he no longer is siding with Donald Trump, and now he wants to use the Black Lives Matter protest in his videos when he was saying that slavery was a choice. So I'm done.
Fuck him. And in the same way that, like I said in that episode, he wanted to use Jesus to get back in black people's hearts, and now he's trying to use black bodies and black pain and black death. You know what?
TheEnd.com.
But, child, I would rather vote for my dog Shaka to be president before I voted for Kanye West.
Well, I think that he's no longer a candidate. I think that he dropped out like earlier today.
He was never going to be a candidate.
I second that.
It was
I mean, not for me.
Yeah. No, I saw
for Chance the Rapper, maybe. Because let's not get into that.
Chicago artists, they are cutting up. So
next case,
right?
it's ride or die Chicago. That's how y'all be.
Oh, they're stupid. They're all stupid. No, but I saw this. I started following Soledad O'Brien on Instagram. Her Instagram is a bunch of like very interesting tweets she posts that either she did or other thought leaders did. And she posted a tweet from Adam Serwer, who's a black journalist, and he said, "The Chance tweet is an example of a larger problem, which is viewing the presidency as a vessel for our hopes and dreams rather than a job that requires a particular skills, talents, temperament, knowledge to do well."
This is crazy.
I mean, that's exactly the thought that I had. Like, I think that Donald Trump created a terrible trend of people who are completely not qualified, having the gumption to like want to run because they're popular,
right?
And they know that they have a platform, and that people will listen to that platform, and people will vote for them. And it's just kind of like, you don't even care about this. This is a brand building exercise for you. This is not. You don't really care about being a politician or a person of the people.
Yeah, it all makes me really tired, so I can't even give any more breath. I can't breathe any more life into this topic. I'm done.
Well, everybody just please go out and vote in November in any primary you have going up, because that's all we can fucking do at this point. Datum or bottom? I think...
True.
Ooh. Oh,
it wasn't true false?
For you.
There's truth in there.
Fact.
For Tony.
Shade. The shade is real.
So I think that episode was one that got into a very vulnerable place for some of us. And the question came up if we had shared the podcast or listened to it at all with any of our family members. Tony, let's start with you.
Yeah, I definitely shared it with all of my family. My father listened to the podcast, and he was ranting and raving about us and just the journey that we're on together. He really enjoyed the podcast tremendously, the topics. He's like, "You all sound really smart." And I'm like, "Thank you. We were striving for that, Dad. Thanks." But very supportive, willing to share it, and actually he called me when he was in the car with his girl and being like, "Yo, Tone, give her the website," and so I shared the website with her. As it pertains to my mother, she's in Virginia. She lives in Buckingham County, where I was raised, and it's under a rock there because they're still on dial-up. I call it dial-up, but she basically has no internet, and so she can't stream anything. So I'm waiting for her to come visit me in New York.
We should put the podcast on record
to listen. That would be that's classy. You can do
really
that.
Classy. I'd love to have that in my house.
We'll love that.
An overwhelming show of love from the family. It's been really nice. What about you, Jordan?
The biggest difference that I noticed is my cousin. So I grew up with my cousin. He was 1 year older than me. Straight cousin. Super athlete, super macho. And then you got me over there, gay and different. But like terrible athlete, Butch Queen, amazing dancer. But he, I noticed a difference in like our chemistry. Like I didn't send the podcast to him, but obviously he follows me on Instagram. He like sees all my stories. I see it, and like he, for the very first time, was just like very comfortable talking about gay things with me, and like for the very first time asked me if I like wanted kids and like who I'm dating, and like I was just like, whoa, what's happening? Like I can come home and like be a full person.
Yeah.
It was bizarre to me actually, and it was very very reassuring. So I'm not sure if you listen to the podcast, but I think that just me being open and comfortable with my sexuality on a public platform, I think has made him more comfortable engaging me about it.
Yeah.
I think subconsciously I was probably being secretive, and he probably received it that way. And then my mom, I sent my mom the Dad, I'm a Bottom episode, just because I feel like we talk about like parenting and like.
Did they know what that was? Did she know what that was? Dad on the bottom, or did she?
I didn't ask her.
No.
I don't know. And it was weird because even when I went home for 4th of July, my mom was like watching a Lifetime movie about a mother who was grieving or mourning the death of her son. Her son committed suicide because he was being bullied for being gay. And she was super religious, and she was going through this mental journey of accepting her son after he passed. And like my mom's like watching this as I'm like in the kitchen and she's in the living room.
Look at that
just like,
timing.
I'm like, y'all are showing out in New Jersey.
It was pride.
But she said that she really enjoyed it. She thought that it was too short, but she really enjoyed it, and she thought that it was a really good conversation. So my family that I grew up with mostly in New Jersey, they're responding well to it. My dad's side of the family, who knows?
Did you? I was going to say, did you ever talk to your dad about it?
No. But I don't even know if he listened to it.
Next case.
Where's the gavel?
Next case.
Damon.
So I went home recently for some family things, and I spent one of the evenings listening to Dad, I'm a Bottom with both my parents. And it was really interesting because I think that it gave us the space to talk about things that I hadn't really talked to them about. And the fact that I was more or wasn't as comfortable speaking to my mother about things. First coming out, my dad was very intrigued by Jordan's experience coming out to his father, and was very into reassuring that, or understanding that hopefully he never made me feel that way.
Yes.
And he was very concerned that if in any way he did, that he wanted me to feel supported.
Yeah.
And I think that even, like, my parents have always been quite supportive and so on, but we don't delve into the topics as much.
Yeah.
And I think that it just gave us the space to do it. So it was a nice experience.
I love that.
Go ahead.
No, I was just getting ready to say that I think one of the episodes towards the end of the season, I said that there's power in vulnerability. And so when you share something like this with it's like kind of like writing in a journal, but it's audio, and they get to hear it, and it's a shared journal, and then they can be a part of that experience with you and empathize or sympathize, or they love us at the end of the day. They want to be supportive. So,
and I think we talk a lot about how to show love and how to show Black queer people love, and it goes beyond the space of tolerance, and I think that's something that has been important to all of us. And it's not just about saying like, oh, we agree to disagree. No, we can't really agree to disagree on my existence.
Right.
Period.
Yes. Okay.
Word.
Speaking of existence, the existence on social media. Hashtag stunt queens.
Ooh, yeah.
My fave.
Juicy.
Stunt queen.
So we talked a lot about things that we share on social media and how we have shaped our lives to kind of be a thing. So one of the questions that came up is that if we were ever to get in relationships again, would you share that relationship? What parts of it would you share? What would that look like for you? Jordan?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually don't have an issue with sharing relationships on social media. I want to make it clear to anyone who's listening who thinks they may date me in the future. I will not be anybody's secret. So
I won't be your dirty little secret.
I won't be in the back corner taking all the photos. I will be in some of them as well. But no, in all seriousness, I personally think that like showing, like having a visual representation of what healthy Black gay men loving each other looks like, I think it's important. So will I, brand myself as like the Black couple? Probably not. But will I don't think I would shy away from, when I'm having a good moment, having a picture and posting it. Like, I don't think that I would like not do that. I see that as being like a part of my relationship.
Okay. I like that. I like that. It seems to me you're willing to be a little bit more open and not necessarily like we got to keep everything under wraps. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't want that. Tony?
For me, well, discretion is key. I do enjoy a bit of privacy, but I do also enjoy living out loud. I think you should be free to share. If you love someone, you should be able to stand and sing it from the mountaintops. But there are levels, and part of those levels mean knowing when's enough and when it's too much. I never want to get to the point where, kind of like Jordan, I don't want to be that Instagram couple. I don't want to, although it'll likely happen anyway because people put aspirational couples on a pedestal without, you don't ask to be, I'm like Rihanna, I don't want to be a role model. I didn't ask to be a role model.
Now she's Rihanna. She's Rihanna. Oh my God.
But I will stand in my truth and be who I am and live unapologetically. And that would be my mantra, do you and feel free to give your all in that relationship and share it with the world. Damon, what about you?
Probably not.
Completely off of social media?
I wouldn't say completely off, but I would say that unless I felt that it was just truly an expression of truth, I would probably not be into the idea again. And I think part of it is me living through an experience where like it was quite disjointed publicly versus what it was privately, and I'm sure there's balance that I'll find at some point.
Yeah.
But initially, I don't necessarily have much interest in sharing it because the people that I know in real life, I would share with them. My actual friends, I would bring a human around that I enjoyed. But as far as sharing to my extended network, I don't necessarily, for at least the beginnings and the longer onset of like starting a relationship, I don't necessarily have placed much value in it at this point.
Okay. I mean, you live and you learn.
Yeah.
And you grow, so good.
Grow. So, next topic, the magical Negro being out of office. I think part of this activity was us also exploring the professional spaces we've been in because it was something that as Black queer people we really wanted to kind of highlight.
Yes.
So what's been the response from you all's or from our professional networks on quite social topics? Ms. Tony?
It was funny because I think on that episode I mentioned having work, that I think I work with some quality white people. And one of the girls on my team said, I hope I'm one of those quality white people that you said you work with. And it's been really interesting. My team dynamic is we have an open, fun bond. And so the fact that they were able to come to me and say what they loved about the podcast and how they felt, they were hearing a perspective that it was kind of like being a fly on the wall and allowing them to hear perspectives from Black queer men who work in corporate and get an inside look on how we actually feel and allowing them to take that in and, sit back and reflect and come to us or come to me with questions or with remarks or different things of that nature. And even a couple of the people said, have I ever said anything to make you feel? And we got into these these really, deep conversations that I was willing to have. I know some of us, meaning us Black people, feel we're exhausted. We don't want to always have these conversations. And I don't either, and it was exhausting for a while. But I do like to at least be someone that can give a teachable moment. And so that's what it was for me. And I really appreciated that the outpour of love from the quality white people ever. What about you, Jordan?
I had a really good conversation with a member of my team, and she was just like, it felt like a genuine like concern about my experience, which I appreciated, without being overbearing and asking of me a lot. But she listened to the Politics of Quarantine. I'm not really sure what she listened to past that, but she said that she really enjoyed the conversation and really enjoyed hearing the different perspectives. I think that oftentimes people don't really take the time to understand that, like, yes, a lot of Black people support Black Lives Matter, but like even in that support, there's so much nuance. Yeah. And I think that, you know, it was really insightful for her, and she wanted to talk to me about like my experience at the company, my experience within the team, and it was a really nice conversation. And it was probably the first time that we had that sort of close and connected sort of conversation. Yeah. So that was really nice. And then I've had like a former the company that I worked at prior to this, one of the founders reached out to me and was talking to me about like what I was experiencing, and then also his thoughts about it. And we had a really good conversation about like what change could be done in corporate settings for Black people. So I've had a lot of really good conversations, and they all sort of like stemmed from the podcast. So I think it's been really good.
Good, because I know, you know, when we recorded those episodes back when, your team didn't necessarily they weren't forthcoming with asking you that information. So I'm glad that this opened up those conversations for you.
Yeah, no, I think it's just like a lot of people were dealing with just like, how do I have this conversation? And even being Black, I felt the same way. Like, am I supposed to put like time on your calendar to have like a Black Lives Matter town hall moderated by me? Like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't have the range for that.
Out of it.
Leave me out of it too.
Damon?
So I think that in the last job, so let's say the last 4 years, I really changed my approach in my corporate experience from what it had previously been. Like, I love Howard. Jordan and I both graduated from the School of Business at Howard, and I think that has afforded us a lot of opportunities. But I also think that Howard and maybe a lot of other schools work in the space of like respectability politics and in the space of assimilation, and you can put your suit on, not wear your hair a certain way, and you work in these corporate jobs and you assimilate as much as possible, and that will get you far. And I think that in my most recent experience, I was just like, you know what? Fuck that. Like, I grew locks at work. I centered my Blackness in conversations. I centered my queerness in conversations. And a lot of times it would make people uncomfortable, and I would be like, okay, I don't care. You should be. And I think that in doing
so you really truly became that magical Negro.
But the thing is, when all of this kind of happened, it in the podcast and timed up with kind of the world going into the space that it's in now, it gave a lot of my former coworkers, I guess, the confidence, let's call it that, to come to me and say like, hey, you made me think about a thing in a way that I wouldn't have done it previously. Right. You talking about your Blackness and what it means and the work we do made me think about how some people are disproportionately affected by police violence, by negative assumptions, by whatever it may be. And in a lot of ways, it was kind of something for me that made, in a way that I jumped off a cliff and it was just like, okay, well, fuck it, I'm going to live my life this way, and maybe it will or won't work out. It was a good checkpoint to say that, you know what, there is value in authenticity. There's value in sharing the things that are different about you with people who have never met anybody like you. Right. And there's value in saying, fuck you if you don't get it.
Period.
And that's how I feel.
Okay. That's great. I love that.
Next question is, again, for the Magical Negro. Our stance on nepotism. Jordan?
It's unfair. I think that it takes away a lot of opportunities from people who are working very, very hard. And I've seen it like firsthand of, you know, being in a previous job and not even being able to interview candidates because a superior had decided beforehand that they wanted to give it to their friend's child. And I'm just like, well, I have like at least 5 resumes that I said that I would consider, and it didn't matter So I think it's really unfair, and I think that it's responsible for a lot of people who look like us not being able to achieve certain opportunities. And as you know, like, you can't get anywhere without that experience. Like, you need that. Internships are paramount. You need that first experience. And I mean, even after the internship process, it's like it still happens. It's all, and I think we talked about this in the episode, but it's all about relationships. And if you're, lucky enough to make it to a certain point of your career where you understand that and you start moving strategically to make sure that you have those relationships, I don't even know when it will ever stop. Right. Like, I hear a lot of companies saying that they're implementing rules where you have to, interview at least one black candidate, like, as a requirement. But we'll see. But nepotism is a huge issue, and it disproportionately, benefits other groups outside of us.
Right.
Yeah, I think when nepotism is tricky because I feel that people of all races and colors and shapes and sizes benefit from nepotism at some point or another throughout their lifetime. However, for the organizations that we work in corporate, when your entire organization is primarily white, those are the people who it's super serving. So that's when it becomes the issue because they're the only ones that are benefiting. So I echo everything that Jordan just said. I feel that when they say they're going to be putting rules in place and this, that, and the third, like there's a long way to go. But hopefully, in light of recent events, the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement being as pronounced as it is, people do start to check their privilege at the door. So that's my take on it. Damon.
Here we go.
I'm just so tired of people. In my former job, I had a associate that worked for me she's a Latina woman, worked her way from nothing, exceptionally hardworking, and I was trying to get her promoted to manager, and to get promoted to manager, she had to the thing would always be you kind of manage the interns because you weren't managing the assistant yet. They were still kind of reporting into me, but you would manage the interns. And I remember she had to manage this girl who was like the daughter of a friend of the CEO. And I just remember talking to her because her and I have a very close relationship still. And I remember saying to her when I finally did get to promote her in a review, and I was just like, it is so insulting to me that I had to sit here and watch you be forced to babysit this person who was an idiot because you, a overly talented and overly deserving person, could not get to the next level without babysitting someone's child who didn't apply for anything, who was just dropped off to us one day and was told that that's what it needed to be. So I think that it's important to not confuse nepotism and networking. Like, I think there's value in knowing that there are people you've worked with that are quite talented. I think that I have, and each of us have gotten into spaces and in rooms because we're smart and we've worked with other people and they can vouch for us being smart.
That's a good distinction.
It's very like, I want to be clear about that because I don't want people to mix up the fact that someone recommending someone for something is the exact same thing as nepotism, because in no way is that the same. But I think, that's all I have to say about it. I think that's clear.
Yes.
All right. The funny episode, We Can't Be Friends, where we got to carry on, and you all heard us kiki probably more than any of the other episodes. So, did this project put any strain on our friendship?
Yes.
I'm like, did it?
Jordan, what you gotta say here?
Yes, 100% yes. But I don't see it as negative. I think obviously this is the first time that we've ever experienced working in like a professional setting with each other. Before this podcast, our friendship dynamic had been purely social.
Yeah.
So I think that I can speak for us all when I say that, like, over the last few months of not even just like recording the podcast, but like developing the podcast and coming up with the concepts for it, like there were times where you just wanted to snap out of podcast mode and just like be good girls for the night. But it was just like
what?
Good girls, you know, like just not like good girls, like the opposite of bad girls, like good, like
I was like, I don't know you girls to be good girls.
No, like fun friends.
Okay.
Like you wanted to just be like fun friends, and you didn't want to talk about like deadlines and, you know, strategy and all of these type of things. And I think that even though, you know, we've had those moments where we felt like we wanted the friendship to take the priority as opposed to like the work stuff, I think that the strain that we experienced working with each other and also trying to balance our friendship outside of the podcast has allowed for growth to happen. I think that we've always disagreed a lot, but more so than ever, we had to figure out a way to disagree but still find a quick resolution. Because the next meeting was in a couple of days, or the next record was in a couple of days, and we couldn't allow things to just sort of like sit there. So, I mean, strain, yes, but I don't regret anything at all.
Yeah. And I think in the moments where there was stress, we worked through it well. Like, there were definitely conversations where, like, I was just like, if Jordan turns into Karen right now, I'm going to rip her head off. Like, Tony, she better not do with me today. I can't do it. And like, even just in going through the experience together, there have been, like I've mentioned this to you guys, we typically live our lives away, and then we'll be like, oh, that's just Jordan, and that's just Tony, that's just Jaman, that's just how they are, and we let things go. And I think that in this setting, we've been forced to address everything. Because the whole point of the thing is for us to talk through, outside of what we're working on, like, professionally. That's a weird way to describe it, but I guess so.
Well, it's professional.
But it's like, especially with like me and Jordan, like we think very differently. And there's been a lot of tension in discussions we've had about how we approach things. And it's interesting, so we typically land on the spectrum of like, I don't give a fuck, and then Jordan lands on the spectrum of like being very mindful or thoughtful of the people around him. And I was having a discussion with one of our close friends, and they asked, "Are you happy?" And in listening back through everything, do you feel like if you've had to act in a way that is very conducive of what other people feel, do you feel like you have a good grasp on like what the end goal is for you personally? And I thought that was a very interesting question someone asked me in regards to like our conversations. What do you think?
That was a mouthful, so I don't even know.
Yeah. So step 1, are you happy?
In life?
In life.
Yeah.
Okay. Step 2, in thinking about how much value you place on how people think or what people will think, what is kind of your end goal? Is it to continue to do that? Is it to, in some way, be just whoever the fuck you want to be one day?
I think it's a balance. I think that I always want to be someone that people know that when you're around me, you feel comfortable. And that, like, I'm sort of like a safe space for people. And I don't ever want to lose that, just because that's something that I always seek out. Like, I gravitate to people like that, and I want to be that person for other people. So I don't think that I'll ever get rid of just, like, you know, not caring about, like, oh, if this person is stressed out, maybe let me act this way to, like, make them a little bit more comfortable. I don't think I'll ever get rid of that, but I do want to find a balance of, like, sacrificing so much of myself in that moment where I feel like I'm drained and now I can't socialize for 3 days because that whole night because the whole night wore me out taking care of everybody.
I can't.
That's why I be sitting in the corner quiet. I'm like, I'm still recharging. Holla at me on Monday.
Girl, let it go. You gotta let go. You gotta let God.
Well, see, I think the process of doing this podcast has really brought to the light, you know, everyone's true selves. it's revealed more of who we each are, in my opinion. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And for me, I am first and foremost proud that we set out to do a thing. We sat down 9 months, 10 months ago, I don't even know at this point, almost a year ago, and decided to do a podcast. And we planned this very diligently, step by step, together, the three of us, putting in equal effort, which group projects are the worst thing that man invented. And so we didn't know how that was going to be. It would either end our friendship or it would bring us closer. I think it's brought us closer. I think we've learned a lot about ourselves, and listening back, it's been therapeutic. But also for me, when I say the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, is because whether it's with you two, Damon and Jordan, or whether it's with any of my other friends, I'm always the one in the middle. I am the one that's sitting there looking back and forth like, when are these girls going to stop it? Because y'all are wearing me out. But I play that role of
Tony Switzerland.
They call me Switzerland, and I guess I can lean into that because it's a good place to be. You need balance, and I think I provide that balance between a lot of my friendship dynamics.
Could you imagine a podcast with just me and Jordan?
Oh my God! Well,
it one season, half a season. I
One episode.
quit halfway through.
So I think through, going on this roller coaster and figuring out every step of the way through how we're going to accomplish this thing, how are we going to tackle this disagreement or that disagreement. We've been able to come out on the other side of it, and here we are in our last episode, and I think we did a great job, so I'm really proud of us.
All right, so last episode, Kyle Tyrone, or my therapist. Is everyone still single? Miss Tony?
100%. If you would like, you can email me at
Hot Mama 94.
Yeah, definitely still single. And what I've been noticing is that a lot of my friends are single, and maybe it's a trend. Maybe that's just like, I think we have a circle of friends beyond just us three, in which everyone is successful. Everyone's has a great job.
So Tony's going to organize speed dating.
I'm not organizing speed, but speed dating might be fun. But I don't know what it is. I think we get in these relationships and we get out and here we are. It's just us girls.
So sad.
Jordan?
Yes, I'm definitely 100% single. Not even on the precipice of not being single.
Not even close. No contenders.
I'm single.
No first runner-ups. No one in the running towards becoming.
All right, so let's wrap up with a couple questions to kind of close out the season. So something came up. How did quarantine change what we had planned?
For the podcast.
It changed
everything.
Oh my God.
Changed everything. We had hired Parkwood to do our production. We had a photographer. We had pyrotechnics, lighting, soundstage. We had it all. We were ready to tear the podcast industry.
Oh my God. So many dreams and aspirations.
Yeah, but I think that's another part that I really enjoyed about this process, is that we had to humble ourselves and do everything on our own and learn how to learn new skills.
Learn everything.
I was working on audio, and I've never worked on audio before. It wasn't great. Sometimes it was better than others. I'm looking forward to being in a studio one day. But Jordan took on design. Fantastic. I think he did phenomenal with that. The level of detail that went into that, and you guys go to Surface Level Podcast on Instagram and check it out. And then Damon, he got our looks together. I think we looked flawless. We pulled these looks straight from our closets and we made it work. And no one can tell me otherwise. So there was a lot that we changed coming into this process after COVID-19 hit the streets.
And then, even just for me, I needed to go home for an extended period of time while we were producing a thing. So we spent 2 days.
Oh my God.
Recording the balance of 5 episodes for the season, shooting all the content, editing. If COVID-19 weren't enough, we I think
It was COVID-19. It was Black Lives Matter. It was fireworks going
the
on.
bombs bursting in midair all through episodes. Oh my God. But we made it.
We made it. We had a lot of help coming into this, and then COVID snatched all of our resources away, and we ended up doing everything ourselves.
Right.
But
so if
I
anybody
think
needs
that,
a website built,
yes, Damon is a website developer. I am a graphic designer, not for hire.
I'm a photo producer /
Creative director. Tony's the audio engineer.
I can't.
A lot more skills that we can add to our LinkedIn.
Right. So, also, were there any responses from this that you did not expect? Jordan.
Yes. So I think that when we were talking about the podcast and what we set out for it to be and what our goals were, I think that we all sort of wanted it to be a podcast that helped other people sort of have these conversations that they may not be having that often. Mm-hmm. What I did not expect is for people to reach out to me individually and share their life experiences with me. Mm-hmm. I think that, from a couple of the episodes, I got a couple of people who reached out to me directly to talk to me about their trauma and their challenges, whether it was with their sexuality and being comfortable in it in all settings and environments, or if it was someone struggling with their relationship with their parent and just like acceptance or rejection. I received like long form messages from people. Mm-hmm. And I think that, out of all of this, all we could hope for is that people would feel, seen mm-hmm. by listening to this. And that was the goal. And even though we set that out to be the goal, I never really truly thought about the day or the moment that it would happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that when those moments happen, I was always taken aback. And it's like great motivation to keep going and mm-hmm. keep doing this thing, because it feels, to Tony's point, it is therapeutic, but other people are healing through our stories. So I think that was the most unexpected for me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily surprising for me. What it was validating, or the fact that we were very intentional about what we wanted to put out into the universe. We did a lot of groundwork. We didn't slap this podcast together. It wasn't a COVID-19 project. We actually worked and thought out and thought through every step of the way. And, kind of like what Jordan is saying, that it wasn't necessarily surprising. It was more so, it felt so good that people received our podcast in the way we intended for them to. Yeah. It was so gratifying, and it is a driving factor to make us want to continue, because we feel like we have reached out and touched people's hands.
Somebody's hand.
And that to me is the most rewarding and fulfilling part of this whole thing, is that, there are people out there listening that are reaching out to us unsolicitedly and letting us know how much they love this or that, or want us to continue. They don't want it to end. And that is making me excited about what we have in store for the future.
Yeah.
Damon?
I don't think anything really surprised me. What did surprise me? Actually, no. The amount of cisgender white people that listen to this podcast. Child, there were like co-workers pulling up out of the ground, people from folks' hometowns, from high school. And you're like, how did you even find this?
Right. Yeah.
So that was fascinating. It's always interesting and then to hear like some random like white woman, like, I listened to your trade episode. I'm like, girl,
do you know what that is?
Right.
Did you look up what the trade was?
It's so fun. It's so fun to hear, straight men or cisgendered white women or black women using this lingo. Right. And then you often wonder, like, you let them carry on and like be proud of you, but you're like, you know what you're saying?
Right.
That Dad, I'm a bottom episode.
I'm just like,
yeah, girl.
Yes.
Go off, sis.
All right. Final question for the season. What was the biggest impact the podcast made on you personally, Tony?
It really showed me that I am enough, that we are enough, that we have what it takes, and we can do things. I was very intimidated about using my skills that I've learned through my professional career all these years to actually put to use on a personal project that felt like a quality, and we pulled it off. And I'm not like trying to pat our backs and like, this isn't like, you know, because I know people hate that, but if you don't give yourself your own flowers, who in the hell else is going to give them to you?
Fuck those people.
And so I'm on that train of like, I'm going to pat ourselves in the back because I really am proud of the work that we put into this. And it showed me that if we can do this, I know that we can do above and beyond what we've already accomplished. And so that is the battery on my back. And so don't you girls get in no more fights. Well, actually, that'll be good content for season 2.
I'm gonna put the pause on season 2.
So yeah, that is for me the biggest impact it's had personally. What about you, Jordan?
I think that it's obvious if you're a consistent listener. I think it's obvious that I am working through my own personal battle of trying to like not think so much about what people think of me and just be myself. And I think that what I wasn't expecting from this podcast was that by being myself on this podcast, I'm actually being myself to a lot of people who are listening. And that sort of tears down that barrier, and I don't even have to put it up. So people are proactively coming to me and they see me for who I am on this podcast, as opposed to seeing me for who I am projecting in that moment in an office space or in a straight male space or in a space that doesn't feel comfortable for me. So I think that for me, it's like it's been the process of just like being myself on this podcast and feeling more confident of being myself outside of the podcast. That's been really impactful. It's been like therapy.
Good.
Because a lot of the stuff isn't really new to you guys. Like we talk about this all the time, but I think that saying it out loud and knowing that I'm saying it to people who are listening, it's like it makes a difference in the way that I show up in the world outside of my relationship with close friends.
100%. Damon?
The podcast took on a very personal thing for me quite recently. I had mentioned that me and my dad and my mom had listened to it while I was home in Chicago. And I've talked about my dad having cancer and him being really sick. And my dad is almost at the place now where he's about to go into hospice care. And that conversation and listening to that podcast with him was kind of the last conversation I got to have with him. He can't really talk anymore. And I think that being in a place where I could have that moment with him, we could talk about something that meant a lot to me, and I could see him for who he had always been to me, as a strong person, as someone who cared a lot for me. One last time is something that will always mean a lot to me, no matter if we do this one season or if we do 50. And I think that is a moment that I won't ever fucking forget. I appreciate my two best friends for helping me create that, and that is something that has been priceless for me and has been the main driver for me, even as my dad's been extremely sick, to get to this moment where we've finished what we set out to do, because I knew it was something that he would want for me to do. And I think that's beyond anything what it's really meant for me and what's been a really, really powerful moment throughout this process.
Yes.
So yeah.
And Jordan, I love you, and we have voiced to you how much we admire the tenacity in which you approach this project, and you haven't let up at all 1 second along the way. You've really been that person that has been very thoughtful throughout this and like put in 100%, even with all you have going on. And so it's really you've been a role model for us on how to
Absolutely
go through challenging times. You know, you don't know how you deal with life when it hits you, but I can speak for both Jordan and I and let you know that we are both really proud of everything that you've done along the way to complete this with us. And so there's no one else that we would want by our sides doing this.
Absolutely. The strength is like every time I see you like working through things and just sort of like putting on a brave face and taking the day on with like new strength is really inspiring to see. And I mean, I think that you're an amazing example of a great person that, you know, just really has a really good heart and just really strong values. And I think that you're doing amazingly well in how you're holding yourself together.
Continuing to snatch those wigs.
And I'm gonna gather you again.
No bags.
No lines. Suffer.
All right. That is a wrap for our very first season, you guys. We're so thankful that you took the time to listen to our podcast. Our hope is that you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoy creating this show. And this isn't the end for Surface Level. We're going to regroup, recharge, and return with season 2 before you know it.
Please continue to share our content via Instagram and YouTube, and encourage any friends you have to follow Surface Level Podcast on all platforms. Stay tuned in the upcoming weeks for a fun way that you can help support us as we launch season 2. And for the last time in our inaugural season, remember, stay curious.